The differences between men and women are not new. They have existed across cultures and centuries. What feels new is how, in modern society, the gap in opportunity has become more visible in certain fields. One of the clearest examples is politics. When people think about women who reached the highest levels of political power, names like Margaret Thatcher, Angela Merkel, Indira Gandhi, or Jacinda Ardern often come up. These figures are well known precisely because they are rare. Women represent roughly half of humanity, yet they hold only a small share of political power worldwide. That imbalance raises an uncomfortable question about how much of this gap is shaped by misogyny, meaning hostility or prejudice directed at women. Welcome to Political Plot, where we cut through the noise to reveal the power plays shaping American politics. Today we're diving into why politics remains far tougher for women than for men, not because of ability, but because of deep-rooted bias, harsher scrutiny, and unequal expectations. We're also exploring how leadership styles, perception, and power dynamics shape who gets to lead and who gets pushed out. The issue became especially visible after the sudden resignation of Jacinda Ardern. Many observers pointed out that the volume of abuse she faced online played a role in her decision to step away. That moment forced a wider conversation. Why does political life seem to demand so much more emotional endurance from women than from men? Why does leadership come at a higher personal cost for them? These are the questions we are exploring here, while also picking up some useful vocabulary along the way. One of the biggest obstacles women face in politics is the long-standing belief that power is a male domain. Political institutions were built by men and for men, and that legacy still shapes expectations today. When Margaret Thatcher became prime minister near the end of the 20th century, she entered a political culture dominated by men who were unaccustomed to taking instructions from a woman. According to political researchers, she was advised to consciously alter how she spoke and carried herself. Her voice was trained to sound lower and more authoritative, while her clothing emphasized traditional femininity. This balancing act showed how carefully she had to manage perceptions. She needed to appear strong enough to lead without violating social ideas about what a woman should look like. It was a delicate situation that required constant adjustment. Being coached in this way means receiving deliberate training to improve how you perform a specific role. In Thatcher's case, the coaching focused on voice, posture, and behavior. At the same time, her attire, meaning the clothes she wore, was used to soften that authority. The result was a kind of balancing act where every detail mattered. What stands out is that male politicians were never asked to make similar adjustments. Their voices, clothes, and mannerisms were treated as neutral by default. This imbalance has not disappeared. Even today, women in public office are judged more harshly for how they look, speak, or behave. Their clothing choices become headlines. Their tone is analyzed. Their personal lives are dissected. The rise of social media has intensified this scrutiny, creating a constant stream of criticism that is often sexist or openly hostile. Faced with that environment, many capable women decide the cost is simply too high. There is an irony here. At the same time that women are discouraged from political life, many argue that politics desperately needs qualities often associated with women, such as empathy, patience, and emotional intelligence. Former New Zealand leader Helen Clark has argued that women frequently bring a different leadership style to public life. She describes it as more collaborative, meaning focused on working with others rather than imposing authority from the top down. Instead of saying, "Do it my way or else," this approach values discussion, evidence, and shared responsibility. That contrast matters because rigid authoritarian leadership has ended the careers of many politicians, both male and female. When leaders refuse compromise and shut down debate, they often lose support quickly. History shows that power sustained through cooperation tends to last longer than power enforced through fear or stubbornness. This brings us back to a familiar pattern in politics. Women are often told they must be strong, but not too strong, decisive, but not aggressive, warm, but not emotional. These contradictions place them in situations where every move is risky. Navigating that space requires constant self-monitoring in a way men are rarely asked to do. So when we talk about women in politics, we are not just talking about numbers or representation. We are talking about the hidden costs of leadership, the unequal expectations, and the cultural habits that quietly push women out of public life. Understanding these dynamics is a step toward changing them. Before we finish, let's briefly recap some of the key ideas. Misogyny refers to prejudice or hostility toward women. Being coached means receiving structured training to improve performance. Attire refers to clothing, especially in a formal or professional context. A collaborative style emphasizes cooperation and shared decision-making. And the phrase "my way or the highway" describes an inflexible approach that leaves no room for discussion. That's all for now. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.